Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Board of Education of Tuesday, November 8, 2016. Please stand and join me already standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the first opportunity for public comment. A member of the public may address the board briefly for up to 3 minutes or request to be scheduled on the agenda of a future meeting by filling out the form that is in the back of the room. Does anyone have any public comment? Mr. Tomosik.
Good evening, Tim Tomosik, Saline EA President, and I'm not here to talk about contract negotiations or anything like that. I'm here because, as you may or may not know, there's rumblings already taking place in Lansing about lame duck, and one of the things that is important to all of my staff and anybody in the future that you would hire as a teacher is our pension. And there's a lot of rumors, of course nothing has happened yet because lame duck hasn't happened, that they were going to severely try to modify, eliminate, somehow do whatever they want to the pension. And of course, I'm approaching the end of my career, so of course it's important to me, but knowing how much work that has gone into hiring 34 people this year or something like that, wages, benefits, salary, retirement, it's very, very important. And if you want to be able to attract the very best, youngest minds into this field, you've got to have the whole package. And if they say, well, we'll give you 1% towards your 403B, it's not going to cut it. And you'll get teachers, but they're going to be, like we like to call them C- teachers. And if you want to excel and continue to put out the product that we've been putting out here in Saline for over 50 years, that's how long the SEA's been around, then anything that you can do as a school board in Lansing when lame duck finally arise would be well appreciated. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Is there any other public comment? Administration.
Just a couple of quick announcements. It's a busy time of year. Many of our athletic programs for the fall are wrapping up. Our cross-country teams had a successful weekend. The football team plays Friday. Currently, right now, as we speak, our volleyball team is taking on Riverview. If they win, they'll be in the regional final on Thursday at Saline High School, so we're excited about that. Conferences are coming up over the next couple of weeks. We start to get into that conference season at the elementary level, and by the end of this month, we'll be on into the end of the first trimester and starting the second trimester. So certainly a busy month, and a month of transitions as we head towards the end of the calendar year. That's all I have. Tomorrow is an early release day.
Board members?
At a foundation meeting this morning, and it's pretty exciting to see the teachers' grants. We can't say who they are yet, but they'll be released on Friday, and there were some really, really impressive teacher grants written this year. So we're really excited about that, and the efforts that the foundation does to support the strategic vision of the district. I think they do a great job, and so thank you to all the teachers that did do that. So it's exciting stuff.
Anyone else? Grace, anything going on at the high school we need to know about?
Not that I can think of. There was like a mock election today.
Who won?
Clinton.
Good. Anyone else? I should say at the end of this meeting, we will have a closed session for superintendent Graydon's evaluation. There will be no action taken at the end of that closed session. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
So move.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 7-0. Scheduled reports tonight. Our first scheduled report is our national merit finalist, or not finalists yet, but are they finalists?
Well,
Soon to be
finalists,
finalists.
national merit finalists, and
Recognition.
semi-finalists. I'll call high school principal David Raff.
Thank you for, thanks for having us here tonight. Oh, it is. Well. appreciate you guys inviting us and our students, our outstanding achievement they've accomplished so far in their young careers. We have a number of National Merit commended students that we are recognizing tonight. And just to let you know, out of 1.6 million students in our country, nationwide, we have 34,000 are national commended merit students. So this is based on their PSAT score, which they take as a junior. So I'll call them up, and then we'll recognize one of our semifinalists. So Austin Bellinger, we're gonna have you come on up, and then have him go sit over here and get a picture.
Yep.
That'd be great. Austin Bellinger, come on up. Aiden Character. Emma Dester. Manasi Dedekavi. Jackson Gregory. William Kenningham. William's sick tonight, but his mom's here. Victoria Mungie. Ted Nowicki. Brendan Owens. Bao Fan, and Kaylee Riggs. Okay, we called them down at the school, they all came. Also, we have amongst us one National Merit Scholarship semifinalist, and out of those 1.6 million, there are 16,000 students. So this is a great accomplishment, and our gentleman is Michael Wolf. Come on up, Michael. Great job. That's out of 22,000 high schools, also nationwide. Thank you. Yeah, I'll take a picture. So that's our group. Outstanding job. I will say Michael has applied to be a national finalist, and I'm confident that we'll have a national finalist here in Saline shortly. So thanks, Michael.
Great job. Good picture. All right.
Very good.
It's a good thought. Trustee Valente hopes the rest are at home studying, so.
I'm sure they are.
Sure they are. So you don't get to this level without putting in a lot of hard work, so congratulations, everyone. Our next report is our Title III presentation.
Yeah. I'm going to call Laura Washington forward. Before I do that, scholars, you are free to leave at this point. I don't feel like you need to stay, so you're certainly welcome to stay. Laura Washington, as many of you know, is our Heritage School Principal. She is also our Title III Coordinator and ELL Program Director. So she's going to talk a little bit more about what Title III is, the who, what, where, why, and how. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Laura Washington.
Thank you. Buonasera, mi piacere di parlare con loro. Quando uno studente entra alla scuola negli Stati Uniti, e questa è la sua realtà, non capiscono la lingua, ma quando la maestra parla loro provano di capire almeno una parola, ma è molto molto difficile. Di più non conoscono nessuno e molti stanno in un paese totalmente nuovo. Che devono fare? So how'd that go for you? Right. That's the reality for a lot of our ELL students who come here for the first time. And a lot of them, we have a few, and I'll go over the numbers and who's here. But the reality is that they're here, and then what happens, right? So they're immersed in a school for the first time, not knowing the language, not having an idea of what is coming next. And so that's where we collectively step in. So tonight, as Scott said, I'm going to talk to you about the who, what, where, why, and how of ELL. So who are our students and who services them? So this year we have approximately 130 students that are in the pre-K through 12 program. This is up from 114 students last year. 28 of those students are considered immigrant students because they've been in this country for less than 3 years. They come to us speaking all sorts of languages. I'm not going to read all of that, but it's everywhere from Afrikaans to Farsi Persian and Mandarin, et cetera, et cetera. So they come from us from all different places, speaking all sorts of different languages. The people who service them are here. Some of them are here this evening, so Annette Blake couldn't join us this evening, but Jane Glumkert is here. If you could stand up, Jane. Tanya Hike is also here. Marina Hadin is also here, and Florianta Salanta could not be with us this evening. I am Laura Washington. I am the ELL coordinator for the district, and the reality is all our Saline staff help in this process as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But thank you very much for coming this evening. So I wanted to showcase our ELL tutors. Unfortunately, they kind of play roles behind the scenes, and I think it's really important that they are here this evening to be showcased. So, what does it mean to be an ELL student? Essentially, what happens is that there's a home survey that goes out to people who register in the district for the first time, and there are two important questions on the survey. One is English the first language that was learned in the home, and then second is English regularly spoken in the home. If the answer is no to either of those questions, that flags us to say, oh, we need to take a look further into this. From there, if we see a no, there's a screener that is done within the first 30 days of school, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but that magic score is 5. They score above a 5, they're not considered an ELL student. If they score under a 5, then there's further testing that we need to do later on in the year. If they come to us from a different district, they automatically, they have a WIDA score, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but if they have a WIDA score that is less than 5, they continue their ELL services here in Saline. Or another aspect that the state added this year was their reading level. If they're reading below grade level, then they are also potentially considered an ELL student as well. So it's kind of this combination of factors, all the factors somewhere in between. That's where I come in and kind of have to segregate the information and see what's going on with a student. So talked about WIDA. So we have in this district NWEA, we all are very familiar with. MSTEP we're very familiar with. PSAT, the high schoolers are familiar with, and SAT. But our ELL students are federally mandated to take another proficiency exam in English. Michigan has chosen to take the WIDA, which is the World Class Instruction for Design and Assessment, and essentially what it tests for them is not necessarily English proficiency like social English, but it's academic English, and we'll get into that a little bit more later on as well. But it's a federally mandated exam, so in the middle of all of this, there's one more test. Let's just keep testing our kids that they have to take, again, federally mandated. So that's kind of the long and short of it. So even if a student's parent states that they do not want their student to receive ELL services, and we have had that for various reasons, they still have to take the test. So I may choose to have my child not have services in some way, shape, or form. State of Michigan, actually the federal government tells us no, but they still have to take the exam. We have great success on our WIDA, and so last year we had 20 of our students. So last year we had 114 students take it, 20 of them exited out of the program. So that was good. So where are they? They're at 41 are at Harvest, 16 at Woodland Meadows, 11 at Pleasant Ridge, 12 at Heritage, 18 in the middle school, and 37 at the high school. So we don't have a very large population of ELL students. What makes our situation a little bit unique is if you think about a district like Dearborn, for example, that has an enormous population of ELL students, a lot of their ELL population speaks the same language, so they can service it a little bit differently than we can. Going from the slide before, you can see where our challenge is. We might have 2 students at Woodland Meadows who speak Portuguese. We may have 3 students at Pleasant Ridge who speak Romanian, and so it's not like we can say, okay, this is what we can do. They're all over the board, so we really have to kind of be creative in how we deliver services. So why do we need ELL instruction? Not just because it's the morally right thing to do, but actually Title III tells us, which is a part of No Child Left Behind, that we federally have to have a program in place. So in essence, the law states that not only are students to learn in order to gain English proficiency in spoken language, but they also have to meet academic criteria as well. And that's where it gets challenging. So you may have a student, for example, and I'll go into this here in a second, but who speaks really fantastic English, right? So their English, they may come over and you hear this all the time. Well, they speak English great. The problem is that we don't know what's going on with their academic proficiency. So for example, if you have a student who has come in from a war-torn country, for example, who is moving from place to place just to find shelter, they might have decent second language for whatever reason. However, this underlying academia may not, or academic content, I should say, may not be there. And so that's a challenge in and of itself because you're filling holes that way. You may have a student who speaks awesome in his or her first language and has been in a stable environment for X amount of years and comes over to the United States who doesn't speak any English, but because they've been in a stable academic environment, their English is actually going to come faster because they have the academic content behind them already. So for example, a great scenario was at the middle school 2 years ago. We had a student come over from Romania, zero English, and I mean zero, could not even say hello to people. And within a year and a half, she already has exited out because she had such a strong content that because of the way the WIDA works, for example, it tests that academic content, so she had that. So it's interesting because not only do we have to worry about, again, academic English, but then we have to worry about social English, but then we have a whole plethora, we have a whole gamut of how kids are learning the language. And so you can see where that would be a bit challenging. So how are our students served? We have our tutors who are here again, who either push into classrooms, they pull out, they work in small groups, but then also this year, I think we finally found the golden ticket. We are actually having in-services for our teachers. Because one of the things that we realized is that we had teachers who are saying, I have this kid in my class who doesn't speak English, what do I do? So this year, or I should say over the summer, I was trained in SIOP, which is a methodology that specifically targets teachers and how to teach if they have students who don't speak English in their classes. And so I was able to do an in-service in October that was received, I think, relatively well, enough that we have another cohort going in November, and then that first cohort wants to meet again, so we're gonna meet again with them in December, just to talk strategy. And so we are able to give them some strategies that they can use in order to help advance our kids. Because the reality is they can't do it by themselves, I can't do it by myself. So if everyone is involved, then we are going to have success in their academics. So that's the very short ELL story. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
If a parent says they don't want their kid to do the program, but you think it's necessary, do you still help the kid?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we try our best. So either I will get on the phone and try to talk to that parent and give explanation on why that student should still be. If they're adamant about the program, try to give strategies to the teachers on how they can implement some of the things in our classes. So yeah, I mean, we still trying to assist as much as possible. Great question.
Do you give any assistance to the parents who do not speak English, but and they may be wanting to learn, or do you direct them?
That's a $20 million question. So we're trying. So we personally do Thursday, for example, I'm meeting with a group of parents. We'll see who shows up. The last time I tried it, I only had 3. So we're gonna, we still keep at it. There's no place in Saline that we have right now where they can go and learn English. Ann Arbor has lots of areas or lots of places where they can go, but we are currently not offering anything. What we always encourage is that actually it's really good if they continue to speak their language in the home, because it's a time where the kids can just relax and the kids can be kids. As long as they're talking still the content, the English will come. And I know that's more difficult for the parents, but no, there's not a place where they can go. Any other questions?
How long are the students typically, does it take them 2 years? I know you said the one student exited after a year and a half.
Yeah,
but
she's definitely the exception. It's normally a 4 to 6 year window
Okay.
that we're seeing, and that's nationwide is what they say. It's a 4 to 6 year window.
If I could jump in and just say
Yeah.
that Laura and the tutors just do a great job with this program. They've really looked at more creative ways to get at the professional development and really care about the students, and it's just impressive the work they do. And so we really need to commend their work.
Thank you.
They do a great job.
Does Christian want to say anything? So Christian is an ELL student at the high school that came with Tanya today, and we would love to hear from you, Christian.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
So hi, my name is Tanya, and I'm the ELL tutor at the high school. One thing I do love about the fact that our population is not as big as other school districts is that we're a little family. And the kids come to my room for lunch, and we hang out. They eat all the snacks in my cupboard. And what's really fun for me is actually final exam day when all of the nationalities are in the room at the same time. And just to watch everybody interact with each other is a whole lot of fun. But this is my student, Christian Gonzalez Chavez. He's been with me since his freshman year. Yeah. And he's just going to say a few words to you about how he's found the program to be helpful.
There's many ways that I found the program really helpful for me, because I still remember that back in my freshman year, I did not know anybody. I was new to the district from Ann Arbor, and I did not know anyone. My grades were going low, and I didn't have like anybody to go to. And that's when I met Miss Hike. And honestly, she taught me a lot through education. When I met her, she started to help me on my work, on my tests, on my quizzes and all that, and helped me like become a better student. She opened my eyes a little bit more, knowing that I gotta really take high school serious, because it's something that can really help me in the future. Honestly, the ELL program is really helpful, because I think that all the students from different nationalities can really find this program helpful by showing them a little bit like more of a new point of view in the school. In my perspective, I find it really helpful. Right now, my grades are getting better and better and better. And like I said, honestly, I was not the best student back in freshman year. I was really having low grades, and she's really helped me a lot. She really put in the time and the effort to really help a student out, and not only a couple, but she helps a lot of students out. And so I really find this program helpful, and I would recommend it to anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you.
Action items. Can I have a motion to approve the changes to policy 2120, duties of the superintendent, as submitted by the board policy committee?
So moved.
Support?
Want to talk about it?
So this came about when we started looking into the new evaluation procedures for the superintendent, and we noticed that his job description hadn't been updated in quite some time. So we thought we should take a look at it, and we did. So there's a few changes. There were things on there that were very old and outdated, and so basically we just kind of updated the policy to reflect what needs to be done now. You have anything to add?
No, it went from 14 items to 19 items.
Right.
No, I think it was, again,
We made it bigger.
we looked at a few other districts too, to kind of just, again, modernize it, I guess, a little
Yeah.
bit. Some of the terminology, it was old and antiquated, and so this is, I think, a refresh on it, so,
We made it more hip.
yeah. There's still other duties as assigned, so don't worry.
Right.
In the prior policy manual, it said you can't do this, which meant you could do
Do everything
else.
else.
So this is an improved version,
Right.
Better version.
slightly. Good. Any questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion to approve the audit report as submitted by Assistant Superintendent Warner?
So moved. Second.
The audit report was in your board packet, and it will be posted on the district website tomorrow. We have representatives here from Plant Moran to discuss the process and the outcome of the audit. Jeff Dalloway and Anthony Sazanowski.
That's a nice name. Good-hearted Polish name.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate the time tonight. As Janice said, I'm Jeff Dalloway, the partner in charge of the audit engagement. And Anthony here, who's been on the engagement for several years now, his role is the in charge. So he's the guy, boots on the ground. He's in charge of the audit on a daily basis, interacting with your team, Janice, and your team, and overseeing the audit, make sure that we hit the deadline appropriately and have everything run on a smooth basis. As we've done in the past, the plan is for me to go over the two reports that we have, then to hand it over to Anthony, let him run through a slide deck, about 7 or 8 slides, focusing mainly on the general fund. You've got one report that's about 55 pages long. That's your financial statements. So that's got all the funds, the general fund, debt service, capital projects, special revenue funds. It contains about 20 pages of footnotes, which include all of your significant accounting policies, as well as details about some of the larger balance sheet items. So for instance, we have long-term debt. We've got about 3 significant bonds out there. We've got the terms of those bonds, the repayment schedules, information like that. If we look at this report, comparing it to prior year, the numbers changed, but the footnotes are very similar to last year. There's no new accounting issues or accounting guidance that came out from the Standards Board that changed anything this year. I'd say the biggest transaction that was significant that would be footnoted differently this year is that we had some several bonds that were refinanced, and so we have about a page of information about the refunding that took place related to those. And he also issued a new bond this year for about $40 million, so there's new information on that bond as well. And then we have the second report is the report on your federal programs. So the feds require an audit if you receive more than $750,000 in federal money. You received about $2 million scattered throughout about 10 to 12 different programs, and so we're required to test that. And this audit's very different than a financial statement audit. We're looking at compliance issues. So essentially, you got money to run a program. Did you spend the money on the requirements of the program? So we're looking at eligibility, allowability of costs. There's some reporting issues or requirements as well. So it's a very different audit, but it's been around here for quite a while now. So the results of both audits, I'm pleased to report that we're issuing an unqualified opinion on both audits. So an unqualified opinion might not sound that great, but it actually is the highest level of assurance that we can render on an audit. And then if you step back a little bit more and say, okay, that's the audit opinion, how did the audit go? I'm also pleased to report that during the course of the audit, we had no adjustments and we had no internal control issues that required us to come to you and say, hey, we had this issue with a segregation of duty issue or something like that. So we have an unqualified opinion, no adjustments, and no internal control issues. And so that's probably about the highest mark you can get. And it really is more of an anomaly than the rule. For instance, Anthony and I just wrapped up an audit about 2 months ago. It took 9 months, and we had 60 journal entries. And we had about 10 material weaknesses in internal controls. But typically, when we do an audit, we usually have a couple journal entries or something that pops up where we have a significant deficiency. But this year, I'd say it's a compliment to Janice and her staff and what they're doing with the books and records. Your books and records are in very good shape. And Janice also, I want to point out, she's very collaborative. As I mentioned, we had a couple of debt refundings that took place. So we had $100 million going one way, $100 million going the other way. We got fees and different things that are going in and out. Those can be complicated transactions to figure out and post. Janice does a nice job with calling us up, saying, hey, let's look at this together. Here's what I'm thinking. Let's get together, look it over, make sure I'm posting the entry the right way. Over the last couple of years, Janice has done that on a couple of different complicated issues. And it's a big deal because it saves time from our perspective in the end. And then you're also not getting the letter that says, hey, these entries were made and things were wrong. But Janice has done a nice job with the books and records. as I said, no adjustments. And, you know, from your perspective, I think that's important because you're making decisions on information that you can rely on. So it's reliable info as you're going throughout the year. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Anthony, and he can walk you through the slides.
All right, so we're really going to focus on the general fund, as this is the primary operating fund of the district. What we have here is the general fund balance sheet, and it is largely unchanged from the prior year. You're going to see a slight decrease in the assets and liabilities. Some of that is offsetting. It's due from other funds and due to other funds, so a lot of those are paid down in the current year. Your receivables are primarily made up of state aid receivables for July and August, and that's about $7.3 million. Then you have about $200,000 of federal receivables for mostly the IDEA program, and about $400,000 of other receivables as well. And then that other bucket, again, is primarily made up of due from other funds that aren't on this slide here, and prepaid health premiums for the summer. Your liabilities, again, you have your state aid note to help bridge that gap in funding from the state. And the district takes it out, at least since I've been around here. And again, it's just to bridge the financing. Again, your accrued payroll is largely similar to the prior year when you think of terms of materiality. There's not a significant amount of change there, unlike last year where we had that change from the fiscal year to the calendar year with the payroll. And then lastly, you'll see your total fund equity decreased, the general fund balance. We're going to get in more of that in a couple of slides here. So we go to the next slide. So this slide primarily compares your general fund revenue from 2015 to 2016. And what is unique about this is we've chosen to take out your MIPSR's 147C revenue, which the state gives the district, but they say, all right, we're going to give you $1 million and you got to put it right back into the pension fund. And it's kind of not a great way to compare year-over-year revenues because it's dictated by the state and you turn around. It's not money you get to spend on teachers and other items like that just to help fund that pension obligation. So we take out the MIPSR's 140C7 revenue and you have about a 2% decrease from 15 to 2016. A large chunk of that decrease is related to the one-time Act 18 revenues, which we talked about last year. There's probably about $1.2 or $1.3 million of a one-time payment in 2015. If you take that out, which you really should be comparing apples to apples, you're looking a little over a 1% decrease in general fund revenue. And you can't necessarily pin that to a specific item other than just programs and other state funding. That's where you're going to find the bucket because your federal revenues were largely similar from the prior year. Go to the next slide. Again, general fund expenditures. And again, we like to take out the 147C expenditures again to kind of compare apples to apples. You'll see expenditures went up, and as we've seen in the last couple of years, the salaries and benefits, your expenditures on salaries and benefits have continued to go up. Which is good to see that you're spending money on your teachers and it's not going largely to other types of expenditures. And what also is a cause of the increase is you're going to see a lot of that realization from those one-time Act 18 revenues finally getting spent in the classrooms. We go to the next slide. So this is a slide, this is one of my favorite slides, I think, out of all the districts I get to present at and audit. It shows the other kind of peer schools in the area and Saline's instruction per pupil compared to the total operating expenditure per pupil. And on a peer-to-peer basis, Saline spends much more per student on classroom items, teachers, and the like, across definitely your peer-to-peer schools. So 65% is about the same percentages last year. But again, it's still good to see that Saline is still spending as much as they do in the classroom. Go to the next slide. So this was a slide that we showed last year as well, and it shows I guess, how the general fund balance changed from year to year. So we see back in 09, 10, 11, 12, in those tough years where the fund balance kept decreasing. We see in 13, 14, 15, 16, again, it's kind of all over the place. And 15, of course, is kind of that 1 year anomaly with the Act 18 revenue. So it kind of just goes to show we're not seeing a consistent 400, 500 grand increase each year. It is kind of all over the board based on one-time expenditures or changes in policy, and it does change from year to year.
Yeah, and if you take a look at it as well, if you just add all that up from 2009 to 16, it's about $350,000 of a decrease.
Yep.
So over a 7-year period, the district is actually, it's eaten into the fund balance by 350 grand. You know, the thing is with the state right now, we've just kind of been plodding along, and they've done a lot of things with one-time monies here and there, and that's why you see some of the spikes. And you know, then I think in 13 there was some reductions to the budget that were made that really kind of helped, you know, stop the slide of the fund balance usage after 10, 11, and 12. But over a long period of time, 350 grand. We're not getting any big spikes in revenue from the state. The economy is still kind of just clicking along at 1%, or you know, it's a slow kind of status quo spot is where we're at. And so over that longer period of time, it kind of shows, you know, we're just kind of plodding along. Right now, the district's fund balance is about $3 million on a $55 million budget. And so, you know, we don't have that opportunity right now to build fund balance just because of the way the increases in expenditures are, and you saw that the revenues actually came down a little bit. So it's hard for the district to keep spending more in the classroom with limited funds coming in. We've eaten up some of the fund balance over here. It's just, I guess overall the picture is you're kind of getting by with what you have, not building more of the fund balance for something that might happen down the road, but you know, you're doing what you can right now, and you can see that you're plowing it back into the classroom, so at least you got the right focus on that.
Jeff, would you say the picture is actually a little bit worse because these are not real numbers adjusted for inflation? We're actually losing ground when you put it on an inflation basis. I mean, there's been inflation over a period of time.
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, so the expenditures, when you always, like if we were to graph the expenditures, we'd probably see a trend that's going up, you know, at a greater pace than what your revenues are. So you are right. I mean, so from a inflation adjusted, you know, trend, you're probably right.
In 2009, we were also getting a larger foundation allowance than we are in 2016 too, so that's...
Yeah, the foundation allowance has done some, you know, they've done some things with foundation allowance, and I think right now, in the year you're in right now, you got an increase of about $120 a pupil, something like that, so, you know,
I don't think it's...
I'm not sure what that percentage is, over $7,400, you know, but it's not significant, right? I mean, it's just enough, just kind of enough to get by is kind of what you're getting.
So this next slide just kind of plays off that and builds off that. And it's showing Saline's general fund balance compared to the state average in the last several years. And it's important to know in the state average, we do take out the District of Detroit. We kind of went back and forth on it on whether that's the right comparison or the wrong comparison. You could probably see about a 2.5% to 3% drop really in the last several years if you were to add that Detroit district in. So you can look at it in either way really, but at the end of the day, you're still below the state average. And it's just something to note that although the fund balance has increased, which is a positive thing, you do want to build that fund balance. It's still trending below where a lot of the other districts on average are in the state. Anything else, Jeff, on that? Or?
No, I think that it kind of tells the story. It's just, historically speaking, I think the school district out here has made it, I think the board over the years that I've been with the district has always kind of, you know, focused on putting more dollars into the classroom, having a robust set of programs and things of that nature. And I think, you know, I think this kind of shows it. I mean, it's kind of decisions that you make that impact that. You know, you can't, it's tough to have both.
Yeah.
A lot of programs and a lot of fund balance, you just don't see that happening.
Especially in the weak revenue increasing environment. So, go to the next slide. I believe this is the last slide. So this was just to kind of summarize the debt activity during the year. As you guys are probably well aware, the 2012 refunding bonds were refunded or refinanced during the current year, about $78 million. And then also the school bond loan fund and revolving fund were refunded as well, or refinanced, in the tune of about $30 million. And overall, between these two refinancings, the district saved about $2 million in, we call it economic gain, the combined economic gain, which is the present value of the savings over the long term. And really where you're going to find a lot of these savings are in the refunding of the school bond loan fund, and I believe shortening the overall, by 1 year, the overall payments out. And then, of course, you had the new bond fund for the $34 million, the $40 million, then there's the premium on the bond for about $6 million. So, just kind of to summarize it up, but if you guys have any questions about those, we can talk about them here. All right, well, that's all we've got from the slides. And any other questions as far as the audit's concerned? Or, yeah.
Any proposed accounting standard changes that might affect us coming up?
No, the largest one was the pension that happened last year. We don't cover that. When we sit down and talk with some of the district, or our clients in the districts, we don't really get into the pension liability. You know, the state took that big pension that's out there and just kind of carved it up and said, here's your piece of that, and put that on your balance sheet.
Yeah.
But most districts and most boards, you govern yourselves based on the shorter term balance sheet, not the long term. I mean, if we looked at the long term balance sheet and you throw, I don't know, 70 million of pension, you know, basically you're defunct.
Insolvent.
I mean, you're insolvent, right?
Yeah.
And there's also about 150 million of long-term debt that's out there as well. And so that's gonna get paid by, you know, property taxes over time. You know, it's different than a commercial business and, you know.
You can find that in every district too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
So there's no new accounting changes that took place this year. There's really nothing new that's coming out on the horizon that's gonna change things
Yeah, nothing
in the
significant.
governmental sector, so, yeah, nothing on the horizon right now.
Right. Some boring accounting stuff like fair value disclosures, or
Yeah,
you know,
right. That's
right? You
stuff
got to
that
add
we-
3 words to the notes or
Right,
something.
we have to
but-
deal with that. But
Yeah,
that's
but
really
from
bad.
your perspective. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Janice, I'd like to echo their comments about the fabulous job that you and your team do over in the accounting office, so always good to see. I know you're always pleased to see no transactional irregular.
Yes.
So, good job.
Thank you.
Please pass that on. Okay, any other board questions or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution to impose a summer tax levy to collect all annual school property taxes as submitted by Assistant Superintendent Warner?
So moved.
Support?
So we've been collecting all of our property taxes through the summer collection only for as long as I am aware. And we just have to pass this resolution to continue that practice. So it's nothing new.
What
just
are
a
our
formality.
alternatives?
This is summer and winter
And
collection.
winter.
Yeah.
Split it up.
Right.
Any other questions? Collecting taxes is a good thing. Can I, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 7-0. Discussion items, grievance committee.
We have a step 3 grievance with SCA relative to taxes on healthcare premiums and benefits. And so the board, per the collective bargaining agreement, needs to establish a 3-person committee. That committee will meet with SCA representatives as well as administrative representatives within the next 10 school days to move forward.
So I will appoint myself Vice President Austin and Trustee Fanis as the grievance committee for this.
All right, I will get with you after getting with SEA representatives and work through some date options.
Okay. Consent agenda. Can I have a motion to authorize the following items as part of the consent agenda? A, approval of the regular Board of Education meeting minutes of October 25th, 2016. B, approval of payment of the general fund accounts payable of November 8th, 2016 in the amount of $970,525.04. C, receive and file the November curriculum, finance, and human resources reports. D, approval of payment of bond fund accounts payable of November 8th, 2016 in the amount of $123,812.84. Approval of the following field trip is submitted by Superintendent Graydon, the baseball team trip to Columbus, Ohio.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 7-0. The next agenda is a board study session. We will be talking about
Emotional health and wellness update.
and we'll have an update on the 2017 bond activities. Did we have one more thing?
Likely a closed session to discuss collective bargaining.
Yes. This is the second opportunity for public comment. Would anyone like to make public comment? Our next meeting will be here on November 22nd at 6:30 p.m. in the Liberty School Media Center. Can I have a motion to enter closed session of the Board of Education at 7:20 p.m. with the intent to enter open session at 8:15 p.m. for the purpose of superintendent evaluation?
So moved. Support.
This is a roll call vote. Vice President Austin.
Aye.
Trustee Brilliant.
Aye.
Secretary Delhay.
Aye.
Trustee Heft.
Aye.
Board President Heineck is aye. Trustee Fanis.
Aye.
And Trustee Valenti.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We'll go into closed session in 4 minutes. Thank you, everyone.